The task that stands before us is tough but simple. Our first responsibility as His Majesty's loyal opposition is to hold this Labour government to account. Our second is no less important. It is to prepare over the course of the next few years for government, to ensure that by the time of the next election, we have not just a clear set of Conservative pledges that appeal to the British people, but a clear plan for how to implement them. A clear plan to change this country by changing the way that government works. The Prime Minister is discovering all too late the perils of not having such a plan. That huge job begins today.
So let's take you through what's actually happened today. Kamal and I, we arrived, didn't we, this morning on a Saturday. It's weird to have this on a Saturday at 8 Northumberland Avenue, a very grand hotel, very palatious down here in Westminster. Lots of crowds gathered in both Team Badenoch and Jenrick to hear the result. What I found interesting is that nobody had a clue. I know we've looked at all of the polls, we've seen Telegraph readers voting in their droves on the website, and Kemi Badenoch always ahead, not just with us, but also Conservative Home, which is very much a kind of litmus test representation of the grassroots. So it's not a shock result. The turnout's high. I think that's a shock because we thought that a lot of Tories would be completely disillusioned with the last election result and not really wanting to turn out. 72%, not bad. We could tell, couldn't we, pretty early doors that it wasn't looking great for Team Jenrick because one of the aides seemed to be close to tears before the announcement was made by 1922 Chairman Bob Blackman.
So the day started at 11 o'clock, as you say. We're here at a hotel in central London in Westminster. Richard Fuller, the party chairman, he made a couple of quite important points before they announced the election result, which is, let's not forget this party lost on July the 4th really, really big. He said this is a party that needed to rebuild trust. Then Bob Blackman, chairman of the 1922 committee, he came onto the stage. He's the person who's been running the election, and he announced the result. There were gasps.
Yes.
I think not so much because Kemi Badenoch won, but that she won big, and also she is a big signal of change. And I think the most important thing that Kemi Badenoch brings to UK politics is she is next generation, and she is very, very different from the past Conservative Party, but also the Labour government. She's small state, she is lower taxes, whereas this government has made clear with their budgets and with the what they've done so far in the first 130 or so days, they are big state, big tax.
I mean, it was interesting because I had both of them on my show, my GB News show last week, and they were saying it's really neck and neck. Both of them separately said that. We even had briefings into the papers this morning. It's going to be very close. 57 to 43 is not close, although there's an interesting stat, isn't there, about the actual numbers, Kamal, and how many votes Badenoch has got in comparison to Sunak.
Yeah,
explain that.
So the party is now smaller, and Kemi Badenoch winning got fewer votes than Rishi Sunak losing to Liz Truss. There was one thing, wasn't there? We were sitting in the audience when Bob Blackman made the announcement of the result. We nudged each other. Kemi Badenoch very generously thanked Robert Jenrick and said he had a big role in the future of the party. Do you remember Liz Truss, when she won, didn't mention Rishi Sunak?
No.
And I think Kemi Badenoch has learnt from Conservative Party history that she has to ensure that she doesn't make enemies of the people who fought her.
Yes.
So it'll be very interesting to see how she ensures that that doesn't happen, because that derailed, frankly, William Hague, Ian Duncan Smith, Michael Howard, who were never really backed by the parliamentary party. She's going to have to work hard there.
One of the criticisms of Badenoch is that she isn't a unifier, that she rubs people up the wrong way. And actually, I thought the speech was very conciliatory. And it was talking about building back the Conservative family, which is very much appealing to those activists who have, frankly, been disappointed by not just the last few months, but the last 14 years. I also quite liked, she has worked on her warmth. I know that she got advice very early on that she was a bit too schoolmarmish and that she should lose the glasses and soften up her whole look. And this whole talking about her family and talking about being a mother, some on the right have criticised that, that means she can't concentrate on the job. I think people fail to understand that modern Conservatives actually quite like people that spend time with their family and are normal. We have had a habit with the Maybot and trusts of having these Conservative women leading the party that people can't quite relate to. They aren't women that you would go and have a drink with. And I'm not trying to be unpleasant about that. Yeah. The thing about Badenoch is she speaks human. She is relatable. You could see yourself maybe having a glass of Chardonnay with her on a Friday night somewhere at, the Red Lion round the corner from Parliament. So I think that helps. She's also talking about Renewal 2030. She knows more than anyone because she's been a member of the party since she was a young woman, that they've got to get younger people back on side. They've got to make the appeal. I can't help but reflect on it with a degree of amusement. We've had this awful week for Labour with the budget backfiring in Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' faces. And now they're having to contend with the opposition leader being both a woman, again for the fourth time, and black. I mean, to be fair, people said of the membership, they won't do this. They're not progressive thinking enough to elect a strong black woman to become the head of the Conservatives. Oh dear, they seem to be making Labour look thoroughly unprogressive by comparison.
Don't underestimate, you don't need to talk about it, but don't underestimate the signal about her being a black woman. There is no need to almost talk about it. Every time she walks onto a stage, every time she stands up against Keir Starmer, she's making a point about the future and about modernity and about you can be on the Conservative side of the debate and still believe in opportunity for everybody. It just sends, I think, the most powerful signal that this sends at this stage, and obviously we'll have to look at what Kemi Badenoch says about policy, is that she is different. What is the biggest thing that the public is searching for in politics? It's difference.
Yes.
It's not more of the same.
No.
And what Keir Starmer has done, and this has been his strategic error and strategic error of the Labour Party and the Labour government, is that he talked different in opposition and he acted the same in government.
Yes.
They weren't truthful about what they wanted to do with tax and borrowing, and the public, and we've seen this in the polling, have immediately made the Labour government, you're all the same. That leaves clear blue water for Kemi Badenoch to say, but I am different.
And she can make noise. She knows that opposition is all about making noise and taking the fight to Labour. We know she can take the fight to people. We know she can make noise. Let's be honest, we discussed this. Prime Minister's questions has literally just become 1,000 times more interesting. If Jenrick had won, it would have been a middle-aged white bloke who used to be a lawyer arguing against another middle-aged white bloke who used to be a lawyer. Now we've got her. We know because we've seen her at the dispatch box. She's roughed up Angela Rayner already. She doesn't hold back. So from a copy perspective, being a Telegraph journalist, Kamal, which we both are, it's a bit more exciting.
And I think she set herself out on the right course. The dividing line she built with Robert Jenrick was that we don't need policies now. We need to do the work. We need to show our principles and our values, not our policies. And the party has agreed with that. And Robert Jenrick, I think, tripped up on trying to be too specific and also responding constantly to the day-to-day news agenda. I don't think the public particularly want to see that from the Conservatives. They want to see a big new offer for the Conservatives, and I think Kemi Badenoch understood that far better.
I think they want a loud opposition as well. For far too long, the Conservatives have been a bit shy about their own conservatism. They've left some of the fights to people on X and Instagram and Facebook. They've left the fight as well to Nigel Farage. She needs to take the fight louder and more effectively than Farage, not least with the right, but also with Labour voters. Let's not forget, Reform are going after these Labour voters. Labour have had a terrible start to their government. This is an opportunity now for the Tories to whisper it, Kamal, stage some sort of comeback.
There were lots of, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, there were lots of supporters of both Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch here, and we caught up with a number of them.
We're joined by key people in the Kemi campaign, an early declarer in Jesse Norman and Alex Burkhart. You have been spearheading things from behind the scenes.
I've been with Kemi for a long time,
right.
And we're just really, really excited about this result. It's wonderful.
And tell me more about that, because some people, critics of the right, said they're never going to elect a black woman to be leader of the party. They've been proved very wrong, those critics.
Yeah, I think that's complete nonsense, as we've seen today, and I have every confidence that Kemi is going to go on to be a hugely successful leader of the Conservative Party, and I think that she will have very broad appeal come the next general election.
Jesse Norman, tell us who Kemi Badenoch is and what type of leader she will be.
I think one of the extraordinary things about Kemi is that she is just so obviously herself. She's prepared to say things that are not necessarily going to, win people's votes immediately, but they win their respect and they come to see how smart and intelligent and energetic she is. And I think that's what's happened with this long election. Yeah. And it's an incredible thing. When she says that we're going to tell the truth, she's speaking from a part of her soul and her heart that I think is very engaging and frankly exciting and interesting.
And chaps, clear this up for us then, because she has had some negative briefing. She'll cross the road to start a fight. She'll start a fight in an empty room. She's arrogant, she's rude, she doesn't listen.
No, it's not true. She does listen. What she loves to do is debate. She is completely honest with people, and she expects people to be completely honest with her. She loves to thrash things through. And to be frank, that's exactly what we need. We've just lost a dreadful election, and now is our chance to be rebuild. And the only way we're going to do that is by working together, forming ideas that are compatible with Conservative principles and that work for the British people. Kemi is absolutely the right person to lead us through that.
Bob Blackman reminded you all in the room that you had a terrible defeat on July the 4th, just a few months ago. What next now for the Conservatives? What does Kemi Badenoch need to do? Does she need to go quiet for a bit and work behind the scenes, or does she need to be out straight away, sort of taking it to Labour? What will the next few months look like?
Kemi will speak for herself, but she's always been clear that as an engineer, as someone with a long-term systematic focus, that's where she's going to be thinking. So she'll be, I'm sure, strong in the short run, but persistent, long-term. She's thinking about renewal. As she said in her speech, not about 5 years, 10 years, it's also about 20 and 30 years. That's an incredible thought. Who's been talking about long-term in our party or indeed in our country?
Could she be your Margaret Thatcher, your revolutionary insurgent leader who comes in with Labour, big state, big tax, she's smaller state, lower taxes? This is the 1970s all over again, and of course, at the end of that decade, you won.
She's going to be the first Kemi Badenoch.
He said it better than I did.
But the dividing lines are interesting, aren't they? They are so
absolutely
reminiscent of the 1970s, given the budget we've just had.
Yeah, look, Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat, but sometimes it rhymes. And there are absolutely resonances. Labour is falling into a trap of its own making. As Kemi hinted at in our speech, the budget has given us a lot of work to do as His Majesty's loyal opposition. We're all looking forward to getting on with that.
Thank you very much indeed, Jessie Norman and Alex Burkhardt. Lovely to see you. Victoria Atkins, Shadow Health Secretary, but also Robert Jenrick supporter from very early on. A bit disappointed. Why do you think he lost?
Look, I think Rob ran an amazing campaign, he and his wife, and indeed all of the team behind it, because we don't often talk about them. Kemi was quite right. There's a team of volunteers behind Rob who've worked their socks off over the last few months, as has Rob himself.
No one can deny he's a grafter.
Oh my goodness.
But why didn't he win over the membership?
I don't know. Look, we'll go through the figures and we'll try to find out what, if anything, was the reason for that. But also, I don't want to take away from Kemi's amazing victory. Huge congratulations to her. And what now is really important is that we as a Conservative Party, having had this contest where it's been an incredibly testing process for all 6 of the candidates, but of course particularly for the final 2, now we need to get behind Kemi and support her so that we, as she said, as a loyal opposition, can really hold this dreadful socialist government to account.
When you look over the next year, what staging posts should the Conservatives now be looking at to build their position? Because at the moment, a lot of the public, I bumped into one of the Daily Tea listeners outside, and he asked me where I was going. He shouted, "Are you that Kamal Ahmed of the Daily Tea podcast?" His kids actually go to one of your children's schools.
Big fan of mine, this chap. Sorry,
yeah. And I said, I'm going to the Conservative Party leadership. And he said, what, are they still going? So you have a big problem with the public not engaging with who you are or anything that you say. What is the next stage for you?
Well, look, I think we all acknowledge we lost very, very badly in the general election, and of course this contest is, if you like, it's the Conservative family asking itself what went wrong and what can we do to mend ourselves, but also to build for the future. We now have our new leader, and I think Rishi Sunak has handed the best possible gift he possibly could to his successor, because we've seen today the first poll showing the Conservatives ahead of Labour, particularly after after Labour's socialist budget. And so it shows just how important our task is for them in the national interest. And I hope and expect that we as a party will be having some debates about policies and so on in the future, but really focusing in on our values, holding this socialist government to account, and then providing a positive vision for our country and the plans on how to deliver it, which Labour haven't done, really delivering that for the next election. So it's a really exciting time, I think, for our party.
And then, woman to woman, what can you tell us about Kemi, your fellow Conservative woman, now the fourth female leader the party has elected?
Isn't it amazing? So, four female leaders. The first leader, by the way, was selected before I was born, and we are wearing this, I think, very lightly. If you think of the fuss that Rachel Reeves made of being the first female Chancellor, I had to point out to her, well, she still had to rely on a Labour man to appoint her to that position, whereas we, as Conservatives, are proud to have given the reins of leadership to Kemi. And the fact that we wear it so lightly, and yet the Labour Party, after 100 years of its history, has not yet dared to trust a woman with the leadership of their party, I think shows that we are the party that gets on and does stuff, whereas Labour is the party of virtue signaling.
But tell me what kind of woman Kemi is, because you must know her personally and hang out with her in the tea room and all that jazz.
Well, actually, in fairness, Kemi and I probably, certainly as government ministers, were very busy, so weren't hanging out much in tea rooms or anywhere else, but she's great fun, and she's also very, very, very bright. She's got real clarity of analysis as well, and of course that's going to be very important as we have some of these policy decisions coming up ahead of us in the years to come. So I think it's a really exciting start for our party, and I very much hope that we as a family will really now knit together to help her succeed.
Amen to that. The Conservative family knitting together in perfect harmony. Kamal?
Kumbaya to us all, like you and myself, Camilla.
Exactly so. You may not agree on everything, but there is more that unites us than divides us.
Exactly.
100%.
I appear to be the centre ground in this conversation.
Possibly that is true. Victoria Atkins, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Daily Tea again. Thank you.
Thank you.